All right, our next guest, a gentleman that turned his life around after homelessness, tragedy, and 3 years in prison. Discovering Bitcoin in 2016, he found a path to financial freedom and authored From Bars to Bitcoin, inspiring others with his journey. Now a global educator, he has been featured in Afrotech, NASDAQ, Vice, and more. As co-founder of the Bitcoin transformation community, he leads efforts to demystify Bitcoin and empower underserved communities, including educated incarcerated individuals for re-entry success. I'd like to welcome Justin Rhedrick.
So we're not using the slides or nothing?
No slides for you?
I got some, but if it's too late,
I think it's too late, but you're good.
All right. So how y'all doing? I'm Justin, as Tristan stated so greatly. So we don't have the slides. That's cool. Let's see where I want to start. So From Bars to Bitcoin, as he stated, it started as a book that I wrote telling my journey from everything he named in the introduction, then coming into Bitcoin. But the program itself, From Bars to Bitcoin, it started out as an idea just around 2022. I've gone through a lot of Bitcoin conferences. I've gone to a lot of education events, from teaching Bitcoin to underserved communities, to speaking at some of the biggest stages in Bitcoin. And I noticed that when we would talk to people about Bitcoin, that most people would say, oh, Bitcoin is cool, but I can't afford Bitcoin. I don't have a job. And I was thinking like, well, damn, are we missing a step in this whole Bitcoin adoption thing? And it got me thinking, a lot of times we go to conferences or whatnot, and we always hear people say, fix the money, fix the world, some type of random shit like that. But the world doesn't seem like it's fixed just because Bitcoin is here. And particularly in our own country, I started noticing, we would say at conferences, oh, Bitcoin can solve a lot of stuff, but at the conference, we only talk about Schnorr signatures, Lightning, SegWit, all this other stuff. And I'm like, bro, the average person outside these walls don't give two damns about Bitcoin moving faster. So I was thinking, like, how can Bitcoin show it solves a real problem? Well, first, you got to research real problems where you are. So my cousin, he sent me, I don't know if anybody in here has heard of Michael Porter, but he gave me the Porter's 5 Forces, and it's basically a model that you could use to create something that is not there. And I started thinking about my own personal life and how Bitcoin changed my life, and then started thinking about, well, how could we duplicate a process of people coming home wanting to know about Bitcoin? Well, at first I was like, well, let's just go ahead and go inside prison and do this. I met my co-founder, Dr. Stacy Boyle, on Clubhouse. We had a conversation about it. I got invited to this conference by this man by the name of Gideon Powell, an empowerer, and I told people my idea. And this man by the name of Jose De Hoyos jumped on board. He said, I have a mining repair program that I want to get out to people. I don't have anybody. So we spun up the nonprofit, the Bitcoin transformation community. And I don't want this to be a story of like how this all came together, but I just thought a little bit of background is good context for what we're going to do. So, the idea was out there. The entity was put together in the state of Nevada. But the real work that mattered was actually getting inside prisons. So I ended up meeting somebody on LinkedIn that he was taking people who were formerly incarcerated inside prisons to educate and help people come home. And I asked him, could I hop on board? I shared that we had the Bitcoin, From Bars to Bitcoin idea. He said, sure. That was September 2023. First place we had gone to was Baltimore, Maryland. And during that time, we've received grants from Block. We've received their grant 2 times. We've recently been awarded a grant from a company called Paysand Incorporated. And we have, nah, you're good. And we have partners such as Compass Mining and LFG Mining. So people start seeing light in this vision because from watching what was taking place with Me Premier Bitcoin or all the other communities in the world, I was like, well, how can you create this in America? Who are the people to create this for? And it was like how John and the guy were talking, like, well, you have a community you know how to speak with, and those are people that were incarcerated. So from there, we've gone to about 5 to 7 prisons and transitional houses. And I would go in there nervous as hell at first, but then I start talking and I relate, and I start speaking in a language that we know. You know, like in prison, you have different currencies. What got me into Bitcoin was that it was decentralized, and it reminded me of stamps when stamps were in prison. So we were understanding about how to barter and trade with different currencies. And one other thing that got me was we would talk to people about going to prison and why you go to prison. Well, because your money is flawed, but you don't know it's flawed, lack of financial literacy. And so there was this guy, he did like 30 years behind a crime that dealt with money. And I asked my friend Ryan, I said, well, what was the value of $1 in 1989? He said, well, like $1. And so in 2022, I asked, and if it's worth $1, it's still not worth it. Because there was a time in like 1920 where the US dollar was like for like $4. But then when he came home, it was like worth 85 cents. And I was like, well, there's a correlation that serving time in prison, going to prison for money, and the money you went to prison for lost its value. It's a double-edged sword. And so then there's this terrible cycle that people don't know about. So we go inside prisons, we share this, we help them understand that there is like a connection to you committing crime for money. And we're not talking about like trying to take over the world or buying a fucking yacht. We're talking about for regular necessities. You know, that's a serious issue. You know, we're not talking to Sam Bankman-Fried. We're talking to somebody who's probably sold drugs or stole a car to pay for water and food and bills. You know, so making that connection was very powerful. But beyond all that, within that time of last year and up until now, we've had some great achievements. One in particular is a transitional house in Houston, Texas called the Colby House. Now, this is a house probably, well, they have a huger house, but they had a room out back, probably the same size as this room with the stage right here. You cut it in half, there's a wall on this side, and then there's a classroom. So me and my partner, Jose De Hoyos, and his team at LFG, we hosted a mining repair workshop for 5 days. And even I myself learned a lot about taking a miner apart, putting it together, troubleshooting it, see the fans are on, or you gotta even build it from scratch. And after that training, those people at that transitional house, they turned that transitional house into a mining repair business. And then just last week, we got a text in the Telegram that they're fully operational, and they would like to have like, they might be over exaggerating, but an 18-reeler full of miners dropped off so they can repair them and get them out there. So a part of this dream or mission of ours is taking place faster than we thought. The fact that Bitcoin is an outlier, is very early, and that, you know, we're all early adopters, even if we're, what year is this, 16 years in. And for people coming home, getting the opportunity to join an industry early means a different level of pay. The entry to, let's just say hypothetically, you get $40,000 to repair miners a year. But a regular warehouse job, you might get only $25,000 a year. So we would take these figures and just, you know, try to see how we can move it around. Can we get people paid more? Or can we provide people hope that there is a chance for you when you come home from prison? Because that's what Bitcoin was able to provide for me, hope. Hope that I could have some bullshit job and save money to end up doing something better. Hope that I can have my money outside of anybody else's control, outside of my own. So we've been able to provide that to different prisons amongst the country in Colorado, Texas, Michigan. And another great thing that has happened, we're in the works of getting this completed right now. There's this platform called Edovo. So in prisons now, they don't have stamps anymore. They have tablets. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, I have tablets. I went to one prison. They were playing video games. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what do y'all got going on now? Like, wow, I felt like I was an ancient person. But anyway, but there's this company called Edovo. So we met with the Edovo platform, and they're a nonprofit just like us. But they're a learning platform where you can upload material to the people incarcerated. So before Bitcoin 25, we'll have our material on these platforms that'll be available to at least 1 million people incarcerated. Thank you. So that's the idea of how that hope, we just want to push that hope out there. There's a lot of other things we have going on. I necessarily don't want to speak more about us than the people we provide these services for. But and even in the state of Colorado, trying to put together an idea where people can mine inside of a prison if the DOC happens to be that open-minded. But the power to, spread a message. I think John was speaking about it earlier, just behind a mission. We're a 501c3, and we just look to empower the rest of the world. Well, people here in our country and the rest of the world, that no matter where you are in this life, that there's an opportunity for you. And so within that, we're pushing right along. I'm kind of get choked up just thinking about how all this comes together very quickly. But I know that when I received an email from someone saying, hey, I heard about what you're doing, and people can email you from prison. Another astonishing thing, right? I was like, what the hell? I got an email from somebody. They say, hey, I heard about what you're doing in a few prisons. I come home in Christmas Eve 2024. Do you believe that, you guys can give me some training or whatnot? He lived in Dallas. I told him, honestly, we're still working on Dallas. There, if you're able to drive or fly or can afford to fly, you come out when we have something in Houston or Colorado, because we want to be able to. Well, Houston and Colorado are the two states in America right now that are mining friendly. So I think it was the same guy over here. You said, you start where you get the energy. You wherever you're getting the most energy, that's where you focus. And so our focus has been those two states, getting this word out to more people as much as possible. And more importantly, getting people employed in this space, so they can think about how to purchase Bitcoin. Or, if you work for a Bitcoin mining company, you don't have Bitcoin. After a while, it just starts looking kind of crazy. So that's all I have for now. Again, I bought my slides up very late. But I will do this. I'll open the floor up to questions, comments, criticism. I'm all here for it. So if you have any, please raise your hand. What's going on?
So when someone's in prison, I get that coming out, working, having, I think the mining space, what's the most compelling thing to a person in prison about Bitcoin? So when you're having a conversation, it's like, where do you even start to connect? And I love what you said, the money is probably connected to why people are in prison. All of our choices are connected to money, so I totally get that. Yeah. But I'd be curious to hear, how does that conversation even start? Bitcoin, what?
Yeah, I think what gets them is the fact that I can relate to where they are currently. It has probably nothing to do with Bitcoin other than the fact that you were in prison like us. You were coming in here to tell us about Bitcoin, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but if they were able to Google my name, they would see that, this space allows for anybody to be here. That's what it is. And if we take it off of me, it's about being permissionless. It's about, hey, we don't give a damn if you got a record. How can you contribute? Because that's all about the space is, how can you contribute? How do you provide value? And so off of that, then people also ask, about some scams or what they heard somebody was doing, all of that type of stuff. And we put all that to bed. Like, listen, we even had this slide. The slide is wide and it says, bad actors do get caught. Then we just have a list of like Sam Bankman-Fried, Mt. Gox people. We just show all these different instances of people getting arrested for committing crime in Bitcoin to say like, don't fuck around and find out that you will be arrested in this space for doing something illicit. But thank you for that question. How about you?
I'm curious how difficult it is, like approaching the Department of Corrections or the transition houses, because a lot of those are privately owned. Is that correct?
So most of the places we've gone are public prisons, and really we've gotten a lot of no's, and most of these people, you would be very surprised. I reached out to them through LinkedIn. So the private prisons, matter of fact, there's a guy here, I think their headquarters is called Core Civic. They're out of Nashville, Tennessee. Some of them are open because it depends upon who you run across. Some people are very open. They were like, hey, whatever can help, we're here for it. Some people, I was telling somebody earlier, you'll go through the whole process, get down to review board, talk to them for an hour, and you'll never hear from them again. And then I had to follow up to them to see what they said. So, at the current moment, it's really just the luck of a draw who you reach out to first, But it's wherever we've been welcomed, that's where we go.
Yeah.
Any other?
Hi there, thanks for your talk. Have you had any parallels just from my personal journey? I've been in trouble, jail a few times. You had to do a lot with drinking alcohol because I have a problem with that. Have you been able to kind of connect or with other volunteer programs that go into correctional facilities, like say 12-step sobriety programs, or is that kind of the health side? For myself, I learned about Bitcoin. I can save money by not drinking.
Right.
And save more Bitcoin is kind of a simple way to put it. But
Yeah.
Curious about that, and I'm not
So not like your most, I guess, famous programs, but like I said, the gentleman I had gone to Maryland and Michigan with, those were all outside. Like none of those people knew anything about Bitcoin. And we actually had gone to a place in Denver called Hazelbrook Recovery. And most of those, some of those people were recovering, substance abusers or whatnot. And they find a way to blend in because some people do end up going to jail or prison. But outright working with, a AA or NA type of ordeal, not just yet, no, sir.